Welcome to the PR Maven Podcast, a podcast all about growing your network and building your brand through traditional and digital networking techniques. I'm Nancy Marshall, the PR Maven and CEO of Marshall Communications. I've been strengthening brands through PR for over 35 years, and now I'm celebrating the success of executives, influencers, business owners, and entrepreneurs from all around the world, all of whom have cultivated their brands and broadened their networks through traditional and digital networking methods. Each week, I interview one of these interesting and influential individuals and provide an opportunity for you, the PR Maven Nation, to gain insights from their strategies and stories. So stay tuned for this week's episode, and thanks for listening. Hello, PR Maven Nation. It's so nice to be back. This is the PR Maven Podcast, episode 146, presented by Marshall Communications, creator of the Marshall Plan 65-Step Strategic Process. For those of you who are new to the show, I'm your host, Nancy Marshall, the PR Maven and CEO of Marshall Communications. I want to welcome you. And today, my guest is Raffi DerSimonian, principal at the RDS Group. Raffi, welcome to the PR Maven Podcast.
Thank you so much, Nancy. I'm so pleased to be here with you today.
Okay, unfortunately, I'm not hearing you, Raffi, so I'm going to ask Jack.
Okay, I can hear you fine.
I lost my sound.
Oh,
we're going to just fix this and be right back.
Okay. So, Nancy, I'm not sure. Can you hear me okay? Hello? Oh.
Just not getting any sound from your computer at all.
Hello? Not sure if you can hear me. I can hear you fine.
Couldn't have anything to do with that backup that we were doing, or the scan that we were doing. Okay, Raffi says he can hear me, and Emma says...
Could your audio be muted, perhaps?
There we go. Okay.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yes, yep.
Okay,
that's great. Okay, so welcome to the PR Maven Podcast. There we go. I'm sorry. I guess it's inevitable sometimes that you have technical difficulties, and thankfully I had Jack here by my side to help me. So welcome, Raffi DerSimonian. It's so nice to have you here.
Thank you so much, Nancy. I'm so pleased to be here with you today.
So with over 20 years of experience in results-oriented public relations, marketing, and communications, Raffi DerSimonian has cultivated a comprehensive understanding of the intersection between institutional marketing, communications, advancement, and the arts. His experience includes learning new brand launches, leading new brand launches, developing marketing strategies, and planning advancement campaigns for a diverse range of institutions and organizations. Via the RDS Group, Raffi works in highly collaborative settings, which allow him to effectively navigate a range of complex and large-scale initiatives. Raffi, you and I connected recently, actually reconnected recently. We were just saying that perhaps we haven't spoken with each other for like 11 years, which is crazy.
Yeah.
But you wrote me a really heartfelt note in the mail, which was so touching. And I was pleased and impressed because, well, you're a younger generation than I am. And a lot of times that younger generation doesn't learn how to write letters. And obviously someone taught you. So tell me the importance of a handwritten note.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much, Nancy.
Yep.
Last summer, I think it was, I read your book. And one of the things that struck me, that resonated with me, was something that we had in common, which is a joy of sending and receiving handwritten
It's like
mail.
your mic was on.
Oh, can you hear me okay? No? Huh. Okay, let me try taking my earbuds out and see if this might be any better.
Sorry.
Is this better, Nancy? Can you hear me okay?
I'm just going to switch it to the speakers.
Okay, whatever you have to do.
Can you hear me okay? Nope. Are you able to hear me or no? Okay.
Yes. Yes, now I can. I'm sorry. I want to cry.
All right. That's quite all right. But I was just saying that, yeah, something I learned that we both have in common is an appreciation for handwritten mail. And similarly to you, Nancy, I developed a knack for it through handwritten correspondence with my friends from summer camp growing up. I spent 2 weeks out of each year at an Armenian camp in Connecticut for folks of Armenian American descent. And it was my favorite 2 weeks out of the year, formed some amazing friendships, and throughout the other 50 weeks of the year, would have pen pals that would write. And there's nothing better than going to your mailbox and getting something that isn't a bill or isn't some sort of digitized piece of mail. And then also, my mom is also very much a believer in handwritten correspondence, and it's something that she's passed on to me. And in my field, in advancement where I cut my teeth in higher education, handwritten correspondence is so important as a relationship building tool. And it's something that served me well. And I can see why you are also a fan of it. We live in this culture that's increasingly AI driven, artificial intelligence driven. And, we're seeking that personalization through digital means. And there's such a low hanging opportunity to rely more on handwritten correspondence as a relationship building tool.
Well, you and I have so much in common. First of all, mothers who were letter writers, because my mom was an active letter writer. It's kind of sad because she's 88 now and she can't control her hand well enough. She doesn't have strength in her hand, so she can't write letters anymore, which is very sad. But also, I too went to summer camp. I went to a 4-week summer camp in New Hampshire for 4 years as a camper, and then I worked there for 4 years. And it was really very impactful on my life, both in forming a lot of lifelong friendships, but also just learning leadership skills. Sometimes I feel like I learned more about leadership from my summer camp experience than all the schools that I went to. And I think just being active in the outdoors and having, adventures. I don't know about your camp, but we did a lot of overnight trips and sailing and canoeing and hiking. And, there was situations. One time we were on a canoe trip on Lake Winnipesaukee and both the camp counselors were sick. And I had to lead my whole group of, I think we were probably 14 or 15. I was sort of the best person in the canoe and on the water. So I had to lead the group back to shore, and it was a little bit scary, but it was instructive.
Nothing better than summer camp. And we live in such a great area for that as well, between Maine and New Hampshire. Lake
Right.
Winnipesaukee is beautiful. I spent 3 summers on Squam Lake in Holderness, New Hampshire, right around the corner, working at a resort as a recreational facilitator, teaching tennis lessons, and probably to this day, the best 3 summers of my life, Nancy, if I were to be honest.
Well, my mom taught sailing at Camp Asquam. So actually your resort on Squam Lake could have become could have previously been Camp Asquam. So, cause and that would have been probably in the 1950s. She went to Camp Asquam, and I know she took the train up from Boston every summer. So that's awesome. So Raffi, how has COVID-19 changed higher education forever?
That's a great question. Well, I would say that it has forced the entire industry, and yes, higher education is an industry at the end of the day, by every definition. It's forced the industry to adjust very quickly to this new normal. It's also forced institutions to rethink their curriculum and how it's being delivered, and also to better articulate the value of an education. It's my humble opinion that no matter what, there's no substitute for in-person learning, that collaborative, hands-on learning that can only occur inside a classroom. But one thing that's become clear throughout COVID is that you can still learn so much online. And I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of this in the future. It's been interesting to observe how different institutions have pivoted or not over COVID. In fact, today, July 1st, marks the final day of Becker College, which is where I cut my teeth in higher education. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this, Nancy, but
I've heard of it.
Yeah, Becker is, they're closing forever. It's an institution that was founded in the late 1700s.
Wow.
And very traditional, but they did not pivot with the times. And it's a great example of how institutions are being forced to rethink their operating model. Some institutions have been really graceful at this transition. I think about your alma mater, Colby, for example, and how Colby pivoted their advancement efforts to securing opportunities for their graduates. And that, to me, just struck me as being such an intelligent use of personnel, human resources, and institutional bandwidth. One of my clients is Maine Media Workshops in college, and they're a good example of an institution that has really capitalized on the opportunity and experienced a great deal of success by embracing online learning. And now they're welcoming students from all over the world, and their online enrollments have grown significantly. So I think that it's really about embracing both modes of education, digital and traditional. But it's no question about it that things aren't going back. And I think for any institution, it's really critical to be thinking about how their curriculum is being delivered. And it's forced some evolution, I think, similar to a lot of industries.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's kind of like in professional life. I mean, as you and I have seen, so much during COVID happened exclusively online. And so if you weren't able to adapt to Zoom meetings and, you know, for example, the evolution that we've had with this podcast, although we've had some glitches today, but, you know, we decided to go to this StreamYard format as a result of COVID. And so, yeah, in real life, we did, and I'm so tired of the word pivot, but we did pivot so much to online. But that's not to say that the in-person isn't important. And I almost feel like since COVID has subsided, you know, we've been flooded with my schedule has just like, just blown up with in-person things. And I do think it's important to get back in person. But it's like, okay, there were some aspects of the COVID schedule that were appealing to me.
I would agree with that. Efficiency in planning meetings being one of them, just, you know, without travel and the, you know, in between periods. But it's all about trying to find the silver linings. But I agree. The word has been quite a lot.
So how can video be leveraged as a tool to drive measurable engagement in PR and social?
Yeah, so video is a medium that gets me really excited personally. Over the years throughout my career, I've come to understand the emotive power of visual storytelling as a way to drive engagement. I think video is an amazing medium because it has the ability to pull us in by our imaginations, sometimes resulting in a physiological response like goosebumps or joy or sorrow. And we as humans respond to story at the end of the day. And videos provided a really unique way to tell a story, to engage audiences, to advocate, promote, especially looking at the importance of video over the last year and a half when in-person meetings weren't available. It provided a good way to stay connected with constituents, customers, clients, audiences. One thing that I think is interesting is that video right now accounts for 82% of all internet traffic. It's also 12 times more likely to be shared than any other medium. And that when accompanied by an image is processed by the human brain 4 times faster. So for all these reasons and the way that our brains are designed for visual recall, I think video is where it's at for any marketing communications strategy.
Exactly. And it's going to be even more so because, I mean, I've actually started looking at the reels on Instagram and, they have like these dances that are I think they originated with TikTok, but it's sort of addictive. It's sort of a problem because I love them. And actually I'm seeing how broadcast television is now using these videos, like the Today Show just this morning showed a woman announcing she was going to veterinary school, but she did it like a TikTok dance with her family. So it's interesting how it's seeping into broadcast journalism also. And, back in the day when I did the PR for Sugarloaf, which was admittedly in the 1980s, I'm a little embarrassed. It was a long time ago, but I remember contacting News Center Maine, which is our NBC affiliate, and saying, we've got a ski race here. We've got some of the top skiers from around the world going down the narrow gauge today. And I was like, we can shoot video and I'll drive it down. That's what I used to do. We used to have a 3/4 inch video deck. We would shoot the video and I would literally get in my car at like 2 p.m., 3 p.m., make tracks as fast as I could to the CBS, NBC, and ABC stations with my 3 dupes of the 3/4 inch tape. But I remember Bill Green, who recently retired, but he was the iconic sports guy. He'd be like, no, we won't take any video that our union, photographers haven't shot. We won't take anything. And that's why I laugh when I today, see the Today Show showing something they found on Instagram, on national TV.
Absolutely.
So the rules of the business have definitely changed. And
it's so true.
And anybody in business, no matter, I think, whether you're an electrician, a plumber, a career counselor, a development professional, PR, you have to be ready to put yourself out there on video. And it doesn't have to be perfect either. Like you don't have to go and get you don't have to go get your hair done. You don't have to go get professional makeup or buy a new outfit. You just have to put yourself out there as who you are.
Absolutely.
Right.
And, this little device has just redefined the notion of accessibility for video. And something that I've been exploring a little bit throughout the last 16 months has been crowdsourced content, inviting people to submit clips, whether it be a testimonial or a thank you to a donor. You said it, you don't need to overthink it or overproduce it. A simple, raw, authentic clip can go a long way with communicating, conveying a message.
Exactly. But on the flip side, and I do a lot of media training for crisis communications, and we all need to be aware that if something goes wrong, there's going to be a lot of people, with their cameras in hand. And I remember a few years ago, actually, at Sugarloaf, I wasn't handling their PR at the time, but one of their lifts derailed, and there happened to have been a reporter from CNN on that lift, and he started broadcasting live, like right from the chairlift.
Yeah.
Which was like, whoa, that had never happened before. But,
right.
And that was several years ago. So that guy was kind of like on the cusp, on the cutting edge.
I remember that exact clip, I think, that you're referring to.
Yeah. Well, I was actually not working for Sugarloaf, but I happened to have been there. And actually a bunch of reporters started calling me, wanting. Yeah. So anyway, that's a whole other story. Yeah. Everybody is connected now, more so than ever.
It's very true. It's very true.
Yeah.
Sounds like Sugarloaf emerged relatively unscathed from that PR incident.
Well, Sugarloaf has a lot of positive goodwill. Like I always say, there's like a goodwill bank account, and they've got a good balance in their goodwill bank account. So if they have sort of like a hit, they can withstand a withdrawal. But if you don't have a positive bank account in your bank account of goodwill, and then you get a hit like that, it could put you out of business. But luckily, they're still in business. And speaking of Sugarloaf, not too far from Sugarloaf is the beautiful city of Waterville, where I did go to both Thomas College and Colby College. You are a proud Waterville native and co-founder of the Waterville Rocks music series. Please tell me about Waterville today and its renaissance.
Yeah, that's right. Another parallel that we share, Nancy, is a deep affinity for Central Maine and Waterville in particular.
Right.
So my father's family emigrated in 1967 from Beirut, Lebanon to Waterville, of all places. And there's actually still a strong Lebanese community in Waterville. My mom's family is from the St. John River Valley in Maine. And it's been really awesome to see the evolution of Waterville over the years. From my days growing up, myself and my entire family, products of the Waterville public school systems, to seeing what was kind of upsetting over several years, kind of, the advent of big box stores took a lot of the energy out of downtown. And seeing Waterville, I'm trying to think of an alternative to the word pivot, but seeing Waterville roll with the punches and really make some incredible improvements and investments has been so inspiring. It's my personal belief, Nancy, that Waterville has all of the ingredients in place to be one of America's greatest small cities. And in so many ways, a lot of these ingredients are already activating and taking root. When I think about, collaborations within higher education, both Colby and Thomas College, those are two incredible assets that the city has. The Opera House is a gem, one of the nicest opera houses that I've seen. In fact, I just got tickets to see Chris Teal from National Public Radio, who's the plays for Nickel Creek in October. So I'm looking forward to that. And also the dining scene. There's amazing cuisine, Lebanese cuisine, Asian cuisine, some really great restaurants. I think most importantly, I would say, is the art scene in Waterville between Colby Art Museum, the new Shoup Art Center that's being created, organizations like Waterville Creates that are actively trying to cultivate Waterville as a destination for the arts. And then there's a few other ingredients as well, including that Waterville's an airport, that it's located equidistant from the two largest markets in Maine, Bangor and Portland. But I would say, above all, Waterville has soul. It's got community. It's got people who genuinely care about the future of the city, including yourself. I had a chance to check out Front in Maine several weeks ago, and I was just blown away at first of all, the architectural build quality is amazing. And I didn't get a chance to go inside, but I did peek the menu. And I heard that you hosted Jesse Souza, I believe, the chef there. Just amazing to see that type of development in the city. And I'm really excited about what that means for the future of Waterville.
Well, we'll have to meet there someday for a little happy hour cocktail and some of their appetizers. So, yeah, Front and Main is a client. Full disclosure, it's in the new Lockwood Hotel, which is was built by Colby College. The hotel is not open yet because of their students who are living there in the dorm room or the hotel rooms and using it as a dorm. So they're about the nicest dorm rooms you could imagine anywhere. But in spring of 2022, it should open as a hotel. But the Front and Main restaurant is open, and they've got a happy hour. They've got a brunch on the weekends, and it's really very good cuisine. But there are other restaurants like Silver Street Tavern and Opa. Amigos. What was it?
Last Unicorn is one
Last
of my favorites.
Yeah. Other great. Yeah. Last Unicorn was there when I was in college at Colby. So it's been there a long time. So yeah, it is an exciting place. And the other thing I want to recognize is First Park, which is a business park in Oakland, which is also a client of Marshall Communications. So they're doing business attraction and economic development attraction, and they've got a lot of exciting things going on there.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing how all these investments take root in the coming decades. It's been awesome to see Colby invest in brick and mortar in downtown. I think that's going to make a huge difference in the short term and in the long term.
Well, I know President David Green of Colby, he has a big vision, and he knows that, to incorporate town and gown, you need to have a vibrant downtown, and you need to have the students downtown and not just up there on Mayflower Hill, isolated from the rest of the community.
Absolutely. Yeah. You had asked about the Waterville Rocks concert series. About 5 years ago, I partnered with Bill Mitchell, who's a mover and shaker in Central Maine. You may know Bill. And he had actually the idea to produce a concert series in downtown. And while I've stepped away from organizing, it's been great to see it continue and flourish. And it's just one of the many examples of why it's worth checking out Waterville. There's so many exciting things happening, and makes me proud as a native to see it take root and to evolve in the way that it is.
Yeah. So tell me about your musical career.
Well, my first reaction is that I think career may be a strong word. However, all joking aside, music has been a source of a lot of joy and fulfillment in my own life. I've produced 3 original albums. Some of my best friendships have stemmed through musical collaborations. There's a period of my life where everything I did was based around music. And I ended up, I had a chance to open for several nationally known musicians. I got to open for Naughty by Nature. I got to open for Howie Day and Rustic Overtones. And nowadays, in my current iteration, I don't get to play as often as I'd like, but it's still something I do, and I really enjoy it.
Well, I think that learning music as a young person actually is a great foundation for your career and your life and your education. I mean, just learning music and learning to read music is very helpful in math and science and reading.
Absolutely. And I would even take that analogy one step further, in that the nature of what I'm doing now professionally requires collaboration. It requires improvisation, a lot of the same skills that musicians hone on stage, whether in front of the microphone or behind the microphone. So I wanted to just give a quick plug to Maine Academy of Modern Music, that basically is educating the next generation of musicians. I've formerly served on the board, and their whole mission is about empowering students through music.
And is that in Waterville also?
It's headquartered in Southern Maine, and I think they do have an operation in Northern Maine. I don't think there's any programming in Waterville proper currently.
Okay. Well, I haven't heard of that, so I will have to check that out. The
Yeah.
Maine Academy of Modern Music.
Yeah. It's like School of
Great.
Rock.
Oh, yeah. I love that. Well, we're going to continue with more from Raffi in just a moment, but now it's time to remind you to please check out my latest book, Grow Your Audience, Grow Your Brand. We're going to have a free giveaway if you go to prmaven.com/giveaway, and you can download a free copy there. And that's a book that I had sent to Raffi in the mail, and he said he enjoyed reading it. So that was great. We'll be back in just a moment with more of the PR Maven Podcast.
Do you want to grow your client or customer base? Perhaps increase brand awareness? Maybe tell your unique story more effectively? Of course you do. But you may be worried that you don't have enough expertise to make that happen. Well, no worries, PR Maven Nation. Let the PR Maven herself, Nancy Marshall, show you how easy it is to get your message across effectively using a powerful yet simple tool, a message map. Nancy's training is often called informative and constructive, well-designed and impactful, with a perfect blend of theory and real-life experience. You will leverage Nancy's expertise to create your own message map when you register for this comprehensive online video training course, which is broken down into 4 easy-to-understand modules. Normally, this course is priced at $147, but for listeners of the PR Maven podcast, that's you, PR Maven Nation, it's only $29 when you enter the code word podcast during enrollment. It even includes a workbook and bonus content to guide you through the process. So go to prmaven.com and click on the Message Map Mastery course to enroll today. Remember, enter the word podcast during enrollment for a special discounted price of $29.
Welcome back to the PR Maven Podcast, and we're here with Raffi DerSimonian, and I'm going to ask him a few more questions. Raffi, you have a background in marketing and the arts, or marketing the arts, but also marketing and the arts. So tell me about your marketing career, and what advice do you have for artists and arts organizations to better promote themselves?
Sure. Well, it's an interesting question. So I started my career in marketing the arts actually as class president for Waterville Senior High School. I produced an evening with rustic overtones at the Waterville Opera House as a fundraiser for my senior class. And I'll never forget that night and how empowering it was to work with my classmates, the community, the artists, the venue. And it was so much fun, frankly, to put it together. And we generated a significant amount of funds for my class. I went to Clark University the next year and ended up studying in London during my junior year. And I worked full-time at the Royal Festival Hall, which is one of the largest cultural arts centers in the world. And I got to work with the head of marketing. And in this role, I learned about the relationship that exists between the artists, the venue, the general public, and media. And something that I've always really enjoyed. I went to graduate school at Clark, and my first job, my first full-time position was in Providence, Rhode Island at the Providence Performing Arts Center. And this is kind of where our backgrounds intersect a little bit, Nancy, because here is where I learned about the power of PR and awareness building versus advertising, and how the two complement each other or can complement each other. So my job was about generating editorial coverage for the theater and strategically selling tickets effectively. So I ended up, my student loans kicked in, and I decided to take a position that was away from the arts, but I kept the arts in my life in some way. When I moved back home to Maine, I produced a music series called Live at the Opera House. I got to present some Grammy Award-winning artists, including Joan Baez and Anita Franco, to name a few. So I got to use all those skills that I developed throughout the years. And now I'm not specifically focused on marketing the arts, but I've served on some boards for arts organizations and still get to stay connected in some small way.
Yeah, that's awesome. Sounds like you had a really great experience. And there's another parallel. I did my junior year abroad in France.
Very cool.
Yeah, so I benefited greatly from all that travel and exposure to different cultures. And I had a Euro pass like the whole time, so I was traveling all around. And my family is of German descent, so I spent a lot of time with my cousins in Germany, which was really, really great.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That must have been a lot of fun.
It was invaluable. So you also have a background in marketing educational institutions. And what advice do you have for schools and colleges to promote themselves?
Sure. So I think my biggest piece of advice would be to determine what sets your institution apart, what distinguishes your mission from the myriad of peers and competitors that are out there. I mentioned the example of Becker College, and I think it's so important with the competitive landscape in higher education that institutions delineate themselves from the landscape. Also, I would say that students want to see themselves when they're searching for college or university. So my philosophy is very much rooted in storytelling around students and faculty and alumni who are doing exceptional things. So at the end of the day, it comes down to several variables working in tandem. Oh, can you hear me? Nope. I can hear you fine. Sorry. So it's more than having a great website. It's more than having flashy marketing materials. It's about identifying a messaging platform that is authentic and resonant for any institution.
Okay, here we are.
Okay.
Sorry, this has never happened before. I just don't know what's going on with StreamYard. But anyway, so yeah, you can pick up where you left off, Raffi.
But in general, my biggest piece of advice for any institution is to tell the stories of folks within the community that are doing exceptional things, that are living and breathing the institutional mission. And oftentimes that comes down to students, alumni, faculty who are pursuing great things in their chosen path. I think that's what resonates most authentically with audiences, and that is what most effectively tells an institution's story.
Absolutely. And a brand is all about telling the stories of how people align with the brand. And part of it starts with really understanding what is the brand and, identifying the avatar or the persona of the brand. And then, just constantly telling stories in a whole variety of ways too, because different people use different media, obviously. I mean, many colleges and universities still do old-fashioned like magazines and view books and alumni magazines. I know Colby has a really nice one, and I read it cover to cover every time I receive that. So, but I can imagine that some of the younger alums, like I'd be interested to ask my 28-year-old son Craig, who also went to Colby, if he reads that alumni magazine or not. He probably would be more likely to watch a series of Instagram stories about it.
Well, it's the term that we use is an omni-channel approach. And nowadays, institutions cannot afford just to have a view book or just focus on their website. It's about thinking about the full 360, all the different communication channels, and making sure that they're accurate and cohesive and reflective.
Right. It's funny you use the word omni-channel because back in the day before the internet, when I worked at Sugarloaf, I remember we used to say we have to assault all the senses of our people. We would picture somebody in Boston and they'd have to be like, we would hope they were seeing the billboards that were along Route I-93 or 495, or, be on WBZ radio and then be on WCBB TV and all, again, assaulting them from all angles, which sounds a little bit violent, actually.
No, but it makes sense. You got to cut above the mix.
Yeah.
That's an interesting term. I'll have to borrow that.
Yeah, you're welcome to. So you've also done some crisis communications planning, which I do also. It's not fun at all, when a client is in crisis, but at that time, emotions are running high, and that's when we can really be helpful to people. So what are your tips for organizations facing a crisis?
Sure. It's been so interesting this past year and a half to observe all these institutions, virtually every single entity respond to COVID. And it's been interesting for me as a communications professional to observe the nuances and differences. But I would say a few themes that apply to any business, organization, institution include, first and foremost, having a strategy mapped out in advance of the crisis. And I cannot stress the importance of this enough, but having some sort of protocol in place makes the actual crisis communications planning that much easier. I would also say that timing matters, and it is all about being very responsive in your response. Even in some instances, even a few minutes or hours can make a big difference in the message being delivered. Something else is about being authentic and demonstrating empathy towards anyone who may be impacted by the crises. And this is really important as it relates to maintaining a human edge. At the end of the day, we are humans communicating with other humans. And then I would say it's about being reflective of your own organizational or institutional mission, vision, or core values. It's important that whatever message is developed, that it syncs up and reinforces whatever your mission, vision may be. And then finally, I would say just be brief, concise. It's all about as few words as possible to express the genesis of what needs to be said.
Yeah, one of the things that we do when we're doing a crisis communications plan is create a message map that has a series of concise messages. It has a key message at the center and then a series of supporting messages. And all of them boil down to like 60-second sound bites that can be delivered quickly. And we try to get our clients to learn those sound bites in advance. And then, depending on what happens, they can customize it, but they will have rehearsed it and done media training in front of a camera so that they can deliver the messages with some fluency.
Have you noticed an uptick in crisis communications work since COVID has taken root?
Yeah, well, yes and no. I mean, we did a sizable amount of crisis prior. It's just, I guess maybe the crises have changed.
Sure. Yeah.
Unfortunately. So, Raffi, is there a book, an app, a podcast, or a website that you have found particularly useful, and why?
Yeah. So a dear friend of mine recommended a book to me several years ago called Ikigai, The Japanese Secret to a Long and Happy Life. And this is a book that I recommend to anyone because there's so many great nuggets of wisdom in there. The genesis of the book is about finding your own Ikigai, which is, if you think about it as a Venn diagram, it's the intersection of what you love to do, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what you can get paid for. So it's a really interesting read. And I tell you what, the Japanese have so much figured out and dialed in. I think about Marie Kondo and the art of tidying up.
I need that.
So I'm a big fan of Japanese culture, and I hope to
Not
someday.
not to mention sushi, which is my favorite food.
Yes, well, I'm such a big fan of sushi.
Me too. We'll have to meet for sushi sometime.
That sounds great. I'd love that.
So how can people get in touch with you if they want to follow up?
Well, you can send me a handwritten correspondence to Raffi DerSimonian, 312 4th Street, number 7 in Portland, Maine. Just kidding. You can email me at raffi@dersimonian.com.
Okay. And I imagine you're probably on LinkedIn too.
Yes,
There you
absolutely.
go. Yeah. There you go. Well, this has been a fascinating conversation. I want to apologize for the technology. That's never happened before, but these things happen, and
Sure
part of
do.
it is just going with it. And you did a great job of just going with it. So thank you for joining me today. And I really look forward to seeing you again in person.
That sounds great, Nancy. Truly my pleasure. And to you and all your listeners, I hope you have a safe and happy 4th of July weekend.
Thanks. And have a great day, PR Maven Nation. Thanks for listening to this episode of the PR Maven Podcast. I invite you to share a review of the podcast on iTunes or your favorite podcast player. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode. You can also join the PR Maven Nation on Facebook. It's free to join, and it's a great community of like-minded individuals who are all looking to learn and grow from one another. If you use an Alexa device, use your Alexa app to search the skills and games section to find and enable the PR Maven Podcast Flash Briefing. This will give you access to exclusive content and more PR and marketing advice. Thanks again for listening, and have a great rest of your week, PR Maven Nation.